Hi, everyone, and welcome to Real Talk Leadership Lessons from the Field. I'm here today with Maureen Mohlenkamp, who's the Vice President and Chief Ethics and Compliance Officer for DXC Technology, and Sylvia Gonzalez, who's the Human Resource Business Partner with PepsiCo. Welcome to you both.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great to see you both. Very excited to get this conversation started. Maureen, let's start with you. Talk to us about your role and how you rose to be in the position that you're in right now.
Sure. I am like you said, the Chief Ethics Compliance Officer at DXC Technology, which is a Fortune 200 tech company. I've been in the role, it'll be 3 years on March 1st. And that was after 24 years at Deloitte, where I was a partner for 15, principal doing ethics compliance, corporate governance, risk mitigation. And I literally walked into this. I met a very senior partner at Deloitte when I was contemplating a transition for my first company, which was a elevator escalator construction sales project manager role. And I was walking in Central Park, and this gentleman walked up behind me and said, I've been keeping pace with you for the last half mile. Would you mind if I walk with you? And I thought, I can outrun you. And we got walking and talking, and everything that I was doing from construction project management and sales and compliance and all about laws and regulations, he could see the translation into ethics and compliance and corporate governance and risk mitigation because he was a visionary partner who really built practices. Um, so I joined Deloitte in 1996 in their ethics compliance practice, and my career kind of followed wherever the Department of Justice was focusing their bright white spotlight. So we helped build the healthcare regulatory practice, the utility regulatory practice as that deregulated. I worked in financial regulatory with banking. And at the end of my career with Deloitte, I was working mostly with tech companies, technology, media, and telecom companies. In the middle of that, I did 6 years client service, 12 years as Deloitte's deputy ethics officer, where I was the primary architect of Deloitte's ethics compliance program for the US, which became the model for the global member firms. Was in that role for 12 years. And then I did another 6 years of client service. So I joked that I had 3 different careers in one organization. Um, I decided to retire early. I was a little burnt out. I was traveling every week at Deloitte. So I retired, made the decision 3 weeks before COVID. So my timing for my perfect retirement got a little interrupted. But I retired then effective August of 2020 and took my mini retirement and got lured out of retirement with this opportunity at DXC because it was everything I wanted to do. I had an opportunity to um, build or rebuild an ethics compliance program, lead a global team, work with a company that was focused on technology and innovation. And really, it wasn't just about fostering an ethical culture, but also applying technology to advance it and do new things. So, and I like to solve problems. So there was an opportunity to do all of this, and it's been 3 years. It's been amazing. I've been blessed to be able to hire some of my former teammates at Deloitte, who had already left Deloitte and joined me. And I inherited a great team, and I've been able to build a wonderful team. And so, and I've also expanded my remit. So I'm oversee our ethics compliance program, our global data protection program, our third-party risk management program, and AI risk, which is where things are starting to get fun and exciting because I learn something new every single day. And that's the goal, to continue to learn. But I just like helping people and I like doing the right things. That's where the natural attraction is to the role. And it turns out, I took a number of ethics compliance courses at Notre Dame, which I didn't realize until um, I had to show that when I became principal at Deloitte. You had to show your curriculum, and so obviously I've had an interest in this space for some time.
And for someone that might not be familiar with that type of work, how would you define what you do as part of ethics and compliance, kind of running that department?
I would say one, I am a square peg in a round hole. Most chief ethics compliance officers are lawyers by background. And the stats change by surveys, but it's about 60 to 70% tend to be lawyers. I have a number of people on my team who are lawyers, but to me, the skill sets are you have to be able to affect change and behavioral change and get to hearts and minds. So I'm a marketing major with a minor in psychology. And that was because originally when I was in sales, it was about getting into people's heads in order to, sell to them. That's what made sense to me. Um, but I swear that I use my degree and that mindset every day because every day I have to work to solve problems. Um, I oversee the Speak Up line, which serves all 122,000 of our employees. So if there's an issue anywhere in the world and they want to speak up either in a named or anonymous fashion, my team oversees that. I could be Today we were talking about how we're going to implement and what changes we need to make related to the executive orders that are coming out fast and furious with our new administration. Does that affect any of our policies? Does it affect any of our communications? Does it affect how we educate our employees? Um, and that could be anything from, the DEI stuff that's coming out or, um, looking at export tariffs, et cetera. So it's just a comprehensive analysis. That was one thing on my agenda today. I was also working on our AI risk management program today. Um, just finalizing some of our policies and practices regarding how we mitigate and govern risk.
So very broad reaching role within the organization.
And no 2 days are the same.
Sounds like it. Sounds like it. So, Maureen, how would you define leadership?
Leadership to me is doing what you say you're going to do,
Mm.
holding yourself to ethical and compliant behavior, truly walking the talk. Um, that's incredibly important to me. And first and foremost, I show up for my team. If my team makes a mistake, I run the team. That's my mistake. That's my opportunity to fix something. Um, I am a leader who rolls up my sleeves. Whether it was at Deloitte or here at DXC, I've always worked side by side with my people because I think anyone can be a leader regardless of their level or tenure in an organization. So my goal is really to empower my team and work with them and share my knowledge. And I think the best legacy I could have is that if I'm a leader that develops leaders, that would be probably um, unequivocally the most important thing I could do as a leader.
So I'm hearing integrity, I'm hearing accountability, I'm hearing collaboration and empowerment, right? Does that sum up kind of your definition?
In fact, I changed the name of my team to the DXC Integrity Team because it was a more comprehensive, all-encompassing name versus just ethics and compliance, and it's more reflective of everything that we do. Um, but absolutely, and you have to drive accountability across an organization, regardless if you're public or private, regardless of your scope and scale. Um, I'm not the one responsible for just ethics compliance. Everyone needs to be responsible for engaging in behavior and holding others accountable to the standards and values that we espouse. Uh, Empowerment, unequivocally. Um, I I want to empower my team. I want them, regardless of level, regardless of tenure, regardless of seniority, regardless of where they're located in the organization. I want them to feel empowered and be empowered to make decisions, and I'm here to support them and help them. But I always joke that I'm Mo, I'm Maureen, I'm their teammate and colleague. If I need to show up as the VP because someone's not listening to them or partnering with them appropriately, I can. But I view myself as one of the team that we're all leading together.
Thanks for sharing that. Sylvia, let's talk to you about your perspective. How would you define leadership?
Yeah, I think I definitely look at it very similar to Maureen's perspective there. I think when I look at leadership, though, I also think of the ability to influence team and then also kind of fostering an environment where you encourage like strategic thinking, right? As a leader, often look at my role is supporting my team and making sure I'm guiding them through decisions, but also like allowing them to make the decisions that they see fit in those situations. So yeah.
And what would you say you look for in a leader when you're working for someone, or when you're kind of looking for a mentor or someone to kind of aspire to be, or to be like, I should say?
Yeah, I think I look for ethical leaders, leaders that can adapt. And I think that that's a huge part that I look for is, um, I mean, the world is ever changing, right? And the business world is ever changing. And being a leader who can recognize when they need to adjust within themselves or even just adjust to the environment is something that I look for in leaders. And I definitely aspire to be that as well.
Backing up, um, Sylvia, I hear you echoing much of what Maureen just said, but also adding adaptability.
I love that because I always say that one, I hire for aptitude and attitude. You got to have great attitude and have the aptitude to learn. I don't expect you to know everything because we've got a talented team and we'll teach you. Um, Unequivocally, you got to be adaptable and resilient in doing so. Um, because I always say I'm not inflexible. While I have strong opinions and I may have different beliefs over my 35-year career of where I think we should go. If Sylvia, as a more junior employee, if you have a better idea and you can explain to me and it makes sense, we're in. That's why I say a great idea can come from anyone on the team at any level. If it's better, it makes more sense. It's just got to be to me practical, and if it makes sense, I'm in. And that's where um, I try to drive a continuous improvement mindset, and that's where becoming adaptable really, really matters. Because what might be the right answer today might not be the right answer tomorrow, and might not be able to satisfy you for the future.
That's right. I think the concept of continuous improvement has always been an important through line for businesses, but with the ever changing atmosphere, the ever changing environments that we're all working in, that becomes more and more salient, right? You can like see and feel the need for continuous improvement almost on a daily basis now, especially more in the AI field where you're spending time. So that really resonates. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it's. I think if you apply that as a lens to the way you view everything, and um, I partner very closely with HR. And I was sharing with Sylvia, um, the HR business, one of the HR business partners in my organization just got promoted this past week to chief people officer. So it's a great stepping stone on your leadership career. But I look at in my partnership with HR, one of the things that we do is we're always looking at whether we get an inquiry or I get a report on the speak up line. I'm looking, why did I get that? I'm doing a root cause analysis. Why did I get that inquiry? Is it because our policies are unclear? Is it because we failed to train or communicate and educate and create awareness about the subject? Is it that we have a control that needs to be improved? And so that's the mindset that I drive across every aspect of my team because we can always get better. And every time we get a question or a report, we should be challenging ourselves to say, is there something we can do to simplify information? Again, because at the end of the day, we're here to serve an organization. We're here to serve my stakeholders are our employees, and I want to create a positive user experience for them.
So you kind of answered what the next question I was about to ask you, which was what drives you? Kind of what's your driving force? What pushes you forward on a day-to-day basis? Would you add anything to what you just said?
I derive great pleasure out of helping people. I'm really not. I'm not that complicated. I like when I can help my boss or I can help a teammate, whether it's something big or small. Um, so when you think about ethics, doing the right thing is not always easy. Um, it's not as gray as people like to think. That the behaviors that get people in trouble are pretty simple. My old boss used to say, basically, if you lie, cheat, or steal, um, that's what would get you fired from Deloitte, and it was pretty simple because But I'd also add in there being disrespectful or not treating people fairly is at the heart of a lot of what we deal with. So I like to help people if they have a problem or if I'm trying to solve something complex. And when Sylvia said strategic thinking, I don't know if you guys have ever done Strength Finder, but we've probably all done a myriad of different assessments to categorize ourselves. Um, But two of my strengths are strategic thinking and ideation. So I derive great pleasure out of coming up with ideas and partnering with others to do that. That gives me energy and focus. And if it's strategic, if it's something that's going to truly be impactful to all, that gets me excited.
Sylvia, what drives you?
Yeah, I would definitely echo again Maureen's perspective here. I think, I mean, the line of "I like to help people" is very much what I would echo there. I love helping people, and that's what really drove me to my career now. Um, we spend most of our lives at work, and if I can help, any of my team members, whether that's, an hourly population, the management population, or even my boss, right? Like that drives me it just gives me I know that instant gratification that, I was able to assist them in that or whatever needed to be done. I think also when I think about, developing leaders, like I have a passion for helping others grow and at any level or stage of in their lives. So that also drives me to be able to, provide them with tools to get to help them achieve their goals or fulfill their I guess highest potential. So
So what have you seen that's worked well in developing others? What are you seeing that you've done or that others in your organization have done that has really resonated with those being brought forward for leadership?
You need to stay engaged with your people. I find it amusing sometimes when people talk about, hey, you need to get to know your team. Well, if you need to say that to a leader, they're not a very good leader. Um, I know my team. I know my people. I invite their questions. I invite, on a quarterly basis, we have global meetings. I have about 54 people on my team globally. Um, and I do sessions that are just Q&As. Just, ask anything. Because I want to encourage a dialogue and have them get to know me and me know them and feel comfortable coming to me with their challenges and their behaviors. But I think um I don't know, that to me is one of the most important things. I don't know that I agree. There's a lot of different mentor programs and different things that you can do, but I think the most important thing you can do is be present, be available, um, be willing to help. And I don't think you need formal programs to do that. But for some organizations who have not embraced an inclusive mindset or embraced you know, having diverse perspectives and backgrounds within their ranks, maybe they need those more formal programs. But I want to attract the best talent. I want to be part of that type of atmosphere and culture and diverse experiences. Um, so I formal programs are great for some, but to me, it's really about being an engaged leader.
How do you develop and foster a team?
yeah, I think that this goes hand in hand with what Maureen kind of talked earlier about just fostering an open like an environment with open dialect, right? I think to encourage just engagement within your team, you have to make sure that they feel comfortable enough to be transparent, and then vice versa, have you be transparent with them. I think that that kind of starts with you bringing your authentic self to work to allow
Mm.
others to bring their authentic selves to work. And that's something that I 100% push for my teams. And I use myself an example and allow them to see my authentic self and see the various different hats I have. And again, just fostering that transparent environment so that they can to just bring in their diverse perspectives and they feel included.
And so, Sylvia, when you talk about employee engagement, what have you seen that works well to engage employees? And what have you seen or maybe heard of from other organizations that really has the opposite effect?
Yeah. So, I mean, when we're talking about, engaging employees, I think the the key thing that I've seen work is leaders just being out there connecting with their teams. And Maureen, you touched on this too earlier, but I mean, really like to be a leader, you have to be out there and engaging with your team and knowing your team, and then allowing them to know you as well, right? Teams aren't going to open up, um, or employees aren't going to open up to you if they don't know who you are or don't feel comfortable with who you are. So again, you know, making sure that the environment that you built for your team is inclusive and inviting, and allows them to, again, just bring their authentic selves.
Thanks for that. Maureen, how would you answer that?
I agree 100% with Sylvia. Long before the term bring your authentic self to work or be authentic or, before that became mantras or common language in HR speak or corporate speak, that's just who I am. I do not know how to be anything else. I joke that there's no poker face here. I cannot lie. Um, uh, so I'm very transparent with my team. They understand I'm a mother of three. I've got a senior in college, a junior in college, and a junior in high school. I, you know, I became a principal at Deloitte when my son was 1 years old. So I've been balancing this, um, motherhood and all the complexities associated with that. And I was always very transparent with my team. Like, if I like, hey, I'm going to be this afternoon, I have a hair appointment. While I'm there, I'm going to take calls, or I'm not, or I need to be off today because I need to go to attend my child's school program, or I go to my daughter's volley. She's on the varsity volleyball team. I go to volleyball games. Um, I may take a call at work, or at a school event or vice, but I'm very transparent in how I'm managing it because I want to give that same flexibility. I've been working remotely for 25 years. And so I've built two ethics compliance programs from my basement while doing extensive traveling in the past, not so much now. But that to me is how you lead. You lead by being transparent. You lead by being honest. You lead by being um, sharing who you are because you can't expect that from your team if you're not willing to do the same. Um, and it makes for a stronger relationship. My team knows that, if they have a problem, regardless of what it is, personally, professionally, whatever, you can call me day and night. Call me day and night, and I'm gonna show up for you, and I'm gonna help you. And if you need to take time off to manage something, you do it. If you know, you can work to live or live to work, and we all work more hours than what our parents did in the past and all that. And people talk about, is it balance? And it's, sometimes it's not, it is. I don't, regardless of what you think, it's integrated. You got to make it work. So to me, that's what being your authentic self is, not only about being fearless and sharing your ideas but it's also being willing to be vulnerable. And, and I think that's what matters as leaders. And you can never stop talking to your people. If you don't like what they're saying, double down and talk to them more. Because the worst thing you could do is shut down, our channels of communication, because otherwise nothing will ever change.
So communication over communication is something I talk with leaders about a lot. We
Absolutely.
think I learned this one the hard way myself. I would think like, I explained that. We talked about this. We've talked about it twice. Why do I have to talk about this again? Oh, because we do. Right? Again and again. And when you think you've said it enough times, you probably are maybe halfway there. Right? You keep going, you keep going. But I want to completely agree with that, but also circle back, Maureen. You brought up, I think, an important concept for us to dig into a little bit about this idea of work-life balance, and especially as women leaders and as parents. And for others, you might not be parents of children, might be parents of pets, or kind of other family commitments or other outside commitments. Talk to me more practically about how you approach that. Like, how did you actually literally manage a day, a week, a month? You've had three children,
Three
right?
children.
That you've had since you started working.
And when I was pregnant with my oldest, who's a senior in college, I wasn't sure I was going to continue working after that. And the role, becoming Deloitte's ethics and compliance officer, deputy ethics officer, that didn't exist. We didn't have a ethics compliance program at the time. And so um, I was 7.5 months pregnant with my daughter when they said, hey, we're like the cobbler's kids with no shoes. We want you to do an assessment of Deloitte's practices, just like I would do for clients. And I said, great. I'm about to have a baby. Could you wait? Because I'm going to have her in October. I'll come back January. And I came back and I did the assessment of Deloitte just like I would have any client that we used to serve. And when that was done, and I delivered a roadmap to the board of what the path to developing a world-class program looked like. And then I said, and I want to be part of the team. And I took an internal role. And ironically, when I was in client service, I traveled all over the US. When I was in my internal role, I traveled all over the world. And we just learned to balance it. When I had one child, daycare, two children, daycare, three children, we needed a nanny. I was flying way too much and traveling too much. And my husband was traveling at the time for his role. And we would make it work. We used to joke though, like if I needed to be at a meeting for my board or the CEO, it'd be whoever got there first. Sometimes it'd be like, well, my CEO trumps your CEO because I put it on the calendar first, and and wait a minute, I'm going to a board and you're just going to that meeting. No, we gotta. So we would just adjust. But it takes a lot of communication with your partner. It you know it does take a village. You have to have a resources or community or friends. And my husband and I do not live near our family. Our closest family member is 4 hours away. So we did develop our network here locally. I live in Cleveland, Ohio, outside Cleveland, Ohio. And so whatever is the way you need to create community to support you and resources to support you, um, I think that's an individual path, but I think it's really important that you identify what's the right path for you. And at different points, my husband's career, we made a conscious decision that mine was primary, and um, and and that was he's incredibly talented, so you have to balance that, like make sure that he's fulfilled and happy in his career and his choices, um, while allowing me the opportunity to pursue mine. But it goes back to communication.
Thanks for that. Really appreciate you sharing. Sylvia, other questions that you have for Maureen?
Yeah. So, Maureen, I mean, since we're talking about work-life balance and, you talked about like navigating that through the various stages of your life.
Mhm.
I mean, do you have advice? Because that's something that I'm still learning and learning to balance, especially throughout my career. But do you have any advice on, how you navigate that, especially when you're traveling? Um, I guess how you kind of learn to adjust that from those different, points in your career.
Recognize that it doesn't have to be one thing, and that just to your point earlier, you're going to adapt. You'll adapt to, you've just newly married. So there may be things you want to do and things that are more important now than were before important before. So you adapt. When you have I joked like when I had my first child, I thought, wow, oh my gosh, I'm so busy. And then you have a second child and you go, oh my God, I had so much free time and I didn't know it. And then the third one comes and it's just, it's his own defense, right? Um, and so I think you just have to give yourself some grace too. Like I know some people that when I was with Deloitte and I was traveling every week, some people would I had different partners and colleagues of mine who'd be like, I have to call my spouse or my children every day at 7 o'clock, regardless of where they were in the world. And I thought, well, I can't do that. My children are in three different sports. They played sports all through high school, all of them. They I would sometimes call and I'd be like, oh, let me talk to the children. My husband would be like, you are disrupting the routine. I got to get these kids to bed. You can't talk to them. And I'd be like, and so you just have to give yourself the grace that it's not one model, and whatever works for you may not be what's going to work for somebody else. And that's okay. There's no, um, and if you set rigid boundaries, just like, the same people who are like, my child must go to bed at this and I got to get them on a sleep schedule. Like, good luck with that. It's, it's a real challenging thing to do. So I think you have to allow yourself grace and flexibility because there is no one model, and it will evolve, from what worked when the kids were small and what works now. A friend of mine, another female executive, says, used to say, little kids, little problems, big kids, big problems. So the challenges that you'll have as your children and you go through your various career progressions, and as they age, are going to be different. And just you have to give yourself the grace. And I would say the one thing that I've not always been good at, I Audrey knows me well. I'm up and down on this, but I think probably the best gift you can give your family and your children is self care. So you know, if you're not caring for yourself, your ability to care for others, and for some people at our stage of career, they're also maybe dealing with elder care challenges, taking care of parents. Um, so I think the most important thing, like, and this is a priority for me this year, is I'm on a path to wellness. I want to get my health back because I've been a little heads down on work and others, and I need to get that back because you can't serve anyone if you're not, caring for yourself first.
I appreciate all that. Sylvia, I would also add, just kind of from my perspective or my experience, and more so in my case as a single mom for a long time there, I worked in spaces where I had flexibility. And so I could still do my mom things. And when my kids were in middle school, I actually coached the basketball team. Right. And so I was able to set it up. It was middle school. So it was only like twice a week. Right. And then on Saturdays. But I was able to set it up that I could plan my meetings, end at a certain time, go do the practice, get homework going, feed the kids dinner, have some time, and then come back, right, remotely. And then I would come back because now my girls, you both know I have both two girls. My girls would be kind of doing their own thing. Homework's done. They're kind of settling in for the night, and I'd come back and finish my day at 7, 8 o'clock at night. And so having just a system like that worked for me. And for a good part of that time, I worked with another woman had children of similar age. So we would schedule our meetings at 8 o'clock at night. So that's how we helped each other find the balance. And so when Maureen mentions about finding your village, that's a big part of it too. That's a big part of it too. Great question.
I agree.
I
I also was fortunate. I was able to coach each of my children in a different sport at different times in their, different ages, like a fifth grade soccer team and eighth grade volleyball team, and it's you just make it work. Some days you leave early and you come back on. Some days you work late, and it just is whatever makes sense for the responsibilities. But what I do also make sure is that the expectations of how I drive myself is not what I expect others. So just because if I work this schedule because I'm a night owl, I'm not a morning person. Though I regularly have 8 o'clock. I've had more 7 o'clock calls since joining DXC in the last 3 years than I ever had in 24 years at Deloitte. But that works for me. Someone else is a morning person. They work a different schedule and they have a different, they want to get up at 6 a.m. and do some, that's great. Um, you just again, flexibility and adaptability, as you said earlier, Sylvia, are key.
And I don't know about you, Mo, but I learned to work ahead, right? I learned to, like, the first time that a kid got sick when I had a deadline that I was about to miss and I had to scramble, like, never was I that close to a deadline ever again, right? I was always days, if not weeks ahead of anything that was coming. And so if something did break with my little system, I had room.
I will say I did not learn that lesson as well as you, but what I have done differently is, or maybe similarly, I've surrounded myself with teammates who are, their strengths and weaknesses are the opposite of mine. So, for example, yeah, here's an example of transparency. I'm very candid about this. I was diagnosed with ADHD at 6 years ago. And then my whole life made sense. The more I've learned, and I continue to learn every day. So time management, not my strength. Um, but I've always said, if there's a crisis, you want me. You want me on your team if there's a crisis because no one can outwork me. No one can out focus me when I'm in hyper focus mode and I'm dealing with a challenge or a problem or a complex situation. And so those are strengths, but there are the time management is a challenge. So what do? My right hand person is extremely strong in time management and governance. And so I have a balanced team approach because I'm also one of the strengths coming out of the ADHD is that ideation, that creation, that's like you could put me in a glass room, have me ideate all day. Just come to me and just ask me. I'll go into solution mode, problem solving mode, creating ideas all day long. And that's great. but I need someone else who's going to help me execute. And it's not that I can't execute, but you need to make sure that, you have to balance those. So to me, it's about complementing yourself, both in your personal and professional life, with the people who are going to make you a better person for yourself and for others.
Great insights. Thanks for sharing that. Maureen, if you could go back and give your, let's say, 24-year-old self like one piece of advice, what would you say?
I would have loved to have had that ADHD diagnosis back then because it would have explained a little bit. Um, I would have liked to have learned more about executive functioning
Hmm.
um, back then. That would have helped. When I think about the things that served me well, um, as being mindful of my mom's advice, and that was, and then she gave this back in college of that, not doing anything that would damage your brand or personality. And at the time, it wasn't talked about, but but God, she was like, God gave you this name and this persona, and you need to make sure that you engage in the right behaviors. And so, who knew? I mean, unequivocally, my values come from my mother. Um, we once the first ethics campaign we ran at Deloitte was the mom test because she's the voice in my head. The mom looked different depending on where you were in the world. Um, but I think just, being true to your values, being true to yourself, being mindful of how you engage with others and being respectful and kind of others, I think is what matters. And that's lessons that I learned at my mother's knee a long time ago. Um, doesn't mean that I always get it right, but I certainly do endeavor to be that person.
Thank you for sharing that. Sylvia, want to make sure you get in any other questions that you have. Any other things you wanted to ask Maureen about?
I do have another question for you, Maureen. Wanted just to know, with me being a new leader, kind of navigating my career, and entering corporate America, if you have any guidance on how you've navigated your career and took those leap of faiths and going into those different career paths within your organization.
I once had an opportunity to serve as the chief of staff of the deputy CEO at Deloitte. And it would have been in addition to my deputy ethics officer role. And I was nervous about doing it. I thought that, there was two big roles. And one of my former bosses had said to me, and he was a mentor to me, he said, goes, Mo, he goes, well, it might be like flying, like a moth flying close to the sun. You might get your wings singed, but if you can survive it, it'll be a great experience. And I thought that aligned with the same leader that I ended up I did go to work for her. Um, Her idea was, the Eleanor Roosevelt quote of do one thing every day that scares you. And 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 my takeaway from that was don't let fear be an obstacle to growth. And it's those things that scare us and or make us uncomfortable, or challenge us in new and unique ways that often creates the greatest opportunity for growth and the greatest opportunities for you to distinguish yourself. So I would say don't be afraid of change. It's every change that I've accepted has led to bigger and better things, even if it was hard initially. I'm thankful for those experiences because it's got me where I am today. And maybe I could have taken a different path sometimes, but I always say in my personal and professional life, maybe the journey could have been a little bit different, but I would want to be exactly where I am today, you know, with my husband, with my children, with my team and the role that I'm at. Um, I'm in the right place. Maybe I could have gotten here a different way, but I'm in the right place. So don't be afraid and surround yourself with good people and look for mentors. Look for people that you want to emulate. Um, there's a young woman on my team who used to be the uh, editor in chief of the newspaper at Notre Dame, my alma mater, and Audrey's alma mater. And she didn't know me from Adam. She found me on LinkedIn and she says she was in a compliance role at a pharmaceutical company. And she said, I want to enter this field and I'd love to learn more about it. And you're the only chief ethics compliance officer who's a Notre Dame grad. And I thought, okay. So she didn't know me. We engaged in a conversation and I took that conversation. This is a very, young woman, 23 years old at the time. And asked for a conversation. I took that conversation. during the course that I knew based upon her role and where she'd gone to school that she was talented, that she was hardworking because she'd been working on the newspaper in the senior role. And by the end of the conversation, I was like, well, I had a role that one of my teammates was filling it, a gentleman who worked for me. And I said, I don't know if he's filled it. And I'm not going to dictate who should be on his team because it's about creating the team and, as Audrey said earlier, empowering your people. So I said, hey, this role might be for you. Let me connect you with this individual. And she's now been on my team 2 years. So, had she not taken the opportunity to find a mentor completely out of her company, just, random, she wouldn't have experienced that change. So I said, find mentors, find people that are interested in the things that you either are doing now or you want to do in the future. And don't be afraid to ask.
Great insight.
I always say, don't be afraid to ask for what you want because the only, someone might say no, but if you don't ask, you're definitely not going to get it.
The answer's already no, right? Right now, you're not getting that thing.
Exactly.
The only thing that could happen is it'll be the same. We still don't have that thing. I appreciate that. Sylvia, I want to give you the final word. Any final thoughts, ideas, perspectives that you want to share with others about what it is to be an aspiring leader and what it is you believe you need to be successful in the future?
Yes, I guess with me just being a new leader, emerging leader, um, I guess advice I would give to other emerging leaders is, uh, don't be afraid of failure. And I think you kind of touched on that of don't be afraid of change, but more so with failure. I think that that's something I recently learned, and when I look at failure, I look at failing, hard and failing fast, and taking that failure as lessons to continue to develop yourself. So I would encourage others to do the same there.
Well, and to your point, Sylvia, it's not only failing fast, but it's also failing forward. You're going to take that experience to grow and, you know, you'll remember your successes, but they always say you remember your failures more because, that's where the hard won lessons are.
That's where the
So,
lessons come from.
so it's a real opportunity.
Great. Thanks so much to you both for sharing your thoughts and your insights. Really appreciate you.
Thank you, Audrey.